Here are 55 of the worst things Trump did during his presidency. Since Donald Trump left office just over a year ago now, he has moaned that the election was stolen from him and said he should have won. These claims have been widely disputed, but even if they were true, it is worth remembering what he was like as a president, and why he absolutely should not be one again. So, here are 55 of his worst acts when he held office. 1. When he dismissed Russian interference in the election. The specter of Russia has haunted Trump since the 2016 election that brought him to power. Post-election analysis of data by the likes of academics seems to suggest that yes, Russian interference played a part in it. But Trump, funnily enough, has never been keen to examine the role Russia might have had in seeing him elected. Which means he's not only blocked every attempt to investigate it but also sacked multiple officials who've threatened to do so, like former FBI Director James Comey. Trump even admitted that Russia was part of his reasoning for firing Comey, making him only the second American president to sack his FBI director. Historic. 2. When he appointed his unqualified family to top administration roles. Ah, the sweet smell of nepotism. As soon as Trump went to the White House, so did his family. But breaking with protocol, members of the extended Trump clan quickly received important high-ranking roles. Like daughter Ivanka and her husband Jared, who are now special advisors, a role that is very vague but ensures they're essentially part of running the country. Ivanka's attempt to mingle with world leaders at the 2019 G20 summit was widely ridiculed. It's not stopped her, or the other Trumps, ascending the power ladder though. 3. When he was literally impeached. You have to do something pretty bad to be impeached. Like have sexual relations with a much more junior member of staff and then lie about it. The accusation facing Donald Trump was that he pressured Ukraine to dig up dirt on Joe Biden and his son Hunter, threatening to withhold aid unless the Ukrainian president complied with his wishes. Trump was acquitted by the Republican Senate majority, but people can examine the evidence for themselves. 4. When he tried to ban TikTok. Donald Trump wasn't aware of TikTok until a few months ago, but now the viral app ranks high on his list of enemies. Why? Teens. It wasn't until teens claimed credit for half-filled seats at Trump's comeback rally in Tulsa. After that, Trump decided the Chinese-owned app was a national security threat and has now forced the sale of TikTok in order for it to continue operating in the U.S. Funnily enough, senior leaders who work at winning bidder Oracle have a very close relationship with Trump's administration. Oracle's win was a surprise, with most expecting Microsoft to succeed with their bid to partner with TikTok's owners in the US. Keep your friends close and your enemy apps closer! 5. When he approved a devastating oil pipeline through native land. One of the very first things Trump did on ascending to office was revive the plans for a huge oil pipeline that had been rejected by Barack Obama. Despite Obama deciding that the pipeline was not only environmentally unsound, it would also not deliver on promises such as lowering petrol prices, Trump merrily fired out an executive order in January 2017. Signing off on the Keystone XL pipeline, which would pump some of Canada's most dangerous oil products over nearly 1,200 miles of U.S. land and Indigenous territories largely. 6. When he called far-right protesters very fine people. Remember Charlottesville? The white supremacist rally where counter-protester Heather Heyer was killed after a member of the far-right drove a car and, well, according to Trump, there were very fine people on both sides of that protest. One side was made up of neo-Nazis and white supremacists. The other was an apostrophe T.7. When he appointed a far-right nationalist his chief strategist. When Trump entered the White House, so did Steve Bannon, a man regularly described as a far-right nationalist. Eventually he was fired after Trump reportedly got sick of sharing the spotlight. Now he's been charged with fraud after embezzling funds donated by Trump supporters to a crowdfunder to build the infamous border wall. Classy. 8. When he imposed a Muslim travel ban In 2017, Trump signed an executive order that temporarily suspended immigration to the U.S. for all citizens of 7 Muslim-majority countries for 90 days. Citizens of Iraq, Syria, Iran, Sudan, Libya, Somalia and Yemen suddenly found themselves unable to enter America. Massive protests immediately took place as a response, with courts eventually finding the ban unlawful and overturning it. That didn't stop Trump though. He issued a new ban in 2018 that instead restricted how many visas could be issued to applicants from Iran, Libya, Somalia, Syria, and Yemen, along with Venezuela and North. This ban was eventually upheld by the Supreme Court. And in February it was expanded to cover citizens from Nigeria, Eritrea, Tanzania, Sudan, Kyrgyzstan, and Myanmar. 9. When he, repeatedly, refused to release his tax returns. From the very beginning, Trump refused to drop his taxes. Why? We can only guess. But former lawyer Michael Cohen suggested it might be for a very Trumpian reason. He doesn't report the income he claims, Cohen claimed during an interview to promote his book, Disloyal. His wealth is not as significant, and I imagine they were probably lenient in how they took deductions. He also said releasing the tax returns might throw up more problems for Trump. His biggest fear is, if that tax return was released, there's a whole slew of accountants and forensic accountants that will rip through it and he will end up with a massive tax bill, penalties, fines, and possibly even tax fraud. 10. When he tried to stop transgender students using school bathrooms in line with their gender. In February 2017, Trump decided to go after one of the most marginalized groups possible by removing protections for trans students which allowed them to use bathrooms corroborating with their gender. The harm the policy could cause was so evident that even Education Secretary Betsy DeVos opposed the move because of the effect it would have on trans students. 11. When he lied about his inauguration crowd sizes. Size matters to Trump, which is why he and his team practiced their very first professional gaslighting by insisting that the crowds gathered for his inauguration were the largest ever, despite extensive photographic evidence. Later it emerged a government photographer had even edited photos to make crowds appear bigger, according to a Guardian investigation. 12. When repeatedly called Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas. After Elizabeth Warren revealed she had Native American ancestry, which wasn't too well received by actual Native Americans, Trump gave her a new nickname, Pocahontas. But rather than mock just Warren, the nickname serves to ridicule Native Americans and indigenous cultures as a whole. 13. When he doubled fees at his resort hotel after becoming president. What's the first thing you do when you become the leader of the free world? Jack up the membership fees at your beach resort. After Trump's election, Mar-a-Lago, the shining jewel in his gilt-coated crown, doubled its initiation fee to $200,000. At the time, Norm Eisen, Barack Obama's top ethics lawyer, called it not very subtle exploitation of the fact that the club's figurehead is now president of the U.S. This type of naked profiteering off of a government office is what I would expect from King Louis XVI or his modern kleptocratic equivalents, not an American president, Eisen said. 14. Try to penalize sanctuary cities for migrants. Sanctuary cities are a loose name for states or localities that have regulations which can act as an obstacle for immigration and customs enforcement, ICE, to hunt down migrants they think they can. So of course Trump has tried to penalize those areas. How? By threatening to withhold federal funding from them. 15. When he fired the acting attorney general for not defending his travel ban. One of Trump's first firings, setting the tone for a presidential term that would see one of the highest staff turnovers ever, was the then acting U.S. Attorney General refused to enforce his first Muslim ban. So she was sacked for betraying the department.